kids. Fuck the kids? Yeah.
When I say, who's the master? You say,
What is up, guys? Show Enough the King here, back with another video, and today it's time for a rant. And this one is just ridiculous. It's, I hate doing rants like this because I feel like trying to hold, the community accountable never really ends well. It just ends up causing more drama, but then I sit back and I just think and I look at things and it just makes me even more upset. So I figure I might as well get my thoughts out there rather than hold them in and just kind of be like explode. So what am I talking about? Today we are talking about uh, a show that is near and dear to my heart. Well, I shouldn't say near and dear to my heart. It definitely hits the nostalgia bites, and that is the Centurions. So the Centurions was a show that released in the mid '80s, and it was about three specialized fighters who had like this like augmented like power suits where they could kind of like fight crime. I think I think the tag for it was like Power Extreme or something to that effect. So I remember I watched the show in the mid '80s. Again, I am an '80s baby, so all of those shows, Mask, Centurions, Thundercats, Silverhawks, all of those shows I watched. He-Man, Transformers, all of those shows I watched in the '80s. And the Centurions only got one season. I think it was like 60 episodes, and then it was like like a three-part miniseries. So franchise has been dead since then. No toys, nothing from the '80s. So a small company by the name of Ramen Toys decided to come out and do something with the license. Now again, they don't have the official license for the Centurions, but again, you know how you can just kind of slightly change things up and you can get away with these things. So they decided to come out with a set called the '80s Commanders, aka the Centurions. Again, not officially licensed. This is a small startup company. They went out and they made this figure. They advertised it on their Facebook page and it was a hit. So I'll show you guys now just so that you can kind of see what the Centurions look like. So these are the Centurions, okay? So there's one that's by land, sea, and air. Again, they have these like modular suits where they can attach like different weapon systems to them, things of that nature, okay? So they come out, they create this product, they get backers, they say, hey, there's like an early bird special, and then you can get in on it, and da 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 da. Each figure was being sold separately, as you can see here. And you can also notice that and again, we'll talk about this later, I can tell you from looking at these pictures that they're not accurate to the '80s show. They went for a more weathered look. And with the helmets, they kind of went with a more gritty, realistic look to the helmets versus like the smooth finishes that you would see in an '80s show. But again, if you go back to the '80s were not about strong detail. They were about, again, smooth edges, very little detail. Whereas you can see in these have more of a militaristic look to them. Fine. Good looking product. People backed it. People loved it. Now, again, the only thing that people complained about were the head sculpts. Okay, and I'll show you another picture of the Centurions, how they look from the top to bottom, things like that. So this is what they look like. Again, battle damage, weathered look to the figures, right? So what ends up happening is the figures they pre-order the figures, they go into production. People do complain about the face sculpts. And again, the face sculpts didn't look accurate to the figure. But again, you guys have to understand this is not an officially licensed product, so it cannot necessarily look exactly like the actual people. But I think there were also QC issues because some of the eyes were crooked. It just didn't look good. And I will admit, when I looked at those faces, it didn't look great. Fair point. So, but everything else was fine. Like you see here, everything else here, you people made an informed decision and purchased these items. Now, again, somebody made a comment in one of the paid posts, and they said, "Will this ever be released again or reissued?" To which Ramen Toys replied, "No." So the first question is why would somebody ask that? So people kind of want to know, hey, if I buy this now and I back your project, are you going to ensure that this is a limited run item? Because again, when you have a limited run item that's new, you know that it's going to maintain its value because nothing like this will ever exist again from this company. It will maintain its value. That's the only reason why somebody else would ask a question like that, right? So the guy replies, yes, this will only be the only run of this product. This, as you see it now, will not be built again. Here we go. So product comes out, people did complain about the face sculpts, but they actually beat the odds of places like Super 7 and they actually delivered right before Christmas of last year. So where my story comes in, I actually come in on the side where I didn't find out about this until slightly after Christmas, after they already delivered. I happened to come across Ramen Toys because I saw like a image on Instagram where they were showing something about Silverhawks, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I saw that Super 7 was doing Silverhawks. I was like, "Oh, somebody else is doing Silverhawks? That's crazy." So I find Ramen Toys. I'm like, "Oh, I'm definitely getting in on this Silverhawks thing." Then that way I can compare the Ramen Toys Silverhawks to the Super 7 Silverhawks when it eventually releases, if it ever releases. So I'm like, oh, cool. So then I'm looking at the other products and again, trust me, there's a method to my madness. This is why I'm giving you the full details the way I am. So I'm scrolling through as a consumer to see what else this company has. And I come across the 80s, Commander. I'm like, is that Centurions? I was like, oh shit, I remember Centurions. Oh snap. Oh, I'm buying this. Again, at this point, I've spent so much money that year on so many action figures. I knew I should not have been buying it. So I thought about it. I was like, oh man, I really wanted to get this. But then it was already sold out. The thing had already been shipped. It was done. I was like, damn, I really, really wanted that. And then I started going to eat. I started going to YouTube. I started watching reviews. I started watching people talk about it and get them in hand. And it looked so good. I was like, damn, those look good. Even I was looking at the face sculpts on the actual review, and I was like, oh, that's not that bad. It's not a big deal. Not that bad. So, that happens, and then over about a week ago, Ramen Toys announces that they are doing a second run of the Centurions or the 80s Commanders, as you can see here. 80s Commander 3-pack set, 80s version, right? They're available April 2022, and they're releasing it as a 3-pack. And this time around, they're getting the 80s inspired colors. As you guys saw before, this is what they look like before. Again, they still look great, but they just had like a weathered pattern. The helmets look more like Spartan, like Master Chief's Halo. Kind of like you can see the ridges, the panels, things of that nature. And then they came out and said, hey, we're going to release another set of the 80s Commanders, and it's going to be matching the more color palettes. They're going to still have the same weaponry. They're going to have new helmets, and they're going to have new face sculpts. So, what do you think happens? The internet, the community exploded. All the people who just weeks earlier were touting about how much they loved their figures and how great they were, are now in this huge uproar because Ramen Toys broke their promise. Ramen Toys lied. They released the Centurions again. How dare they? They promised that they would never release the thing again. And they're on I'm looking at the Facebook page, and these people are going in. Like, I'm reading through this stuff and I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? Like, when I saw this come up, I was sitting here thinking to myself, I was like, oh snap, like I actually get an opportunity to get one of these now. Like, I missed out on the first set. It wasn't the weather pattern. Like, yes, I'm looking at this one. This is more accurate to the 80s show. That is awesome. But the people who backed it the first time were like in a huge uproar. I mean, they were like grabbing the pitchforks, and then again, I had to pause, and I was just like, all right, let's talk about it. Let me think about it from, because again, I this is where I want to take a pause from talking about this and just talk about collectors in general. I am a collector. I am a person who also sells. So I see things from both perspectives. I see things from the consumer perspective. I am also a consumer. I buy these products. I also see it from a business perspective of a person because again, I also sell product. And what I can tell you is that, and again, people might hate me for this, but toy collectors and collectors in general are the fucking worst. The fucking worst. Like the sense of entitlement that collectors have is just ridiculous. I have talked about this in the past, so this technically should not be a surprise to anyone because again, I've talked about this with GI Joe, and I've talked about this with other things. Collectors are the fucking worst. Like if you guys are not complaining about not being able to get product, or if you're complaining about having to pay more than retail, like if you're complaining about, like I've watched so many videos and so many comments about people complaining and bitching and moaning about the littlest things. Now here, let me be clear. I am not saying that you cannot give constructive criticism. I am not saying that you should not hold companies accountable when you see things that should not be happening. And what I will say is things like Action Force with their Wasp Raider and the things of that nature being shipped with tight joints in the legs and cracking and popping. That to me is unacceptable. If you are providing a product and you're paying a premium price for that, that product should ship with no issues as far as like its tangibility, and like your leg should not be popping off out of the packaging. That is not acceptable. Okay? Or something being shipped as not as advertised. Like if I'm paying for a figure, a Roadblock, and Roadblock is an African American character, and then you ship the Roadblock and he looks like he's white. Again, that's never actually happened. But again, I'm saying you're supposed to get what you pay for, all right? As advertised. If I make an informed decision on how something looks on product shots and then it comes out, and again, sometimes the product might look slightly different, but again, you're getting what was as advertised. So the people who bought the original weathered Commandos got what they were asking for. Ramen Toys never said they were going to never re-release another 80s Commanders in general. That would be stupid from a business perspective for reasons that I'm getting ready to explain. But again, let me jump back before I talk about the Commanders again. There is this thing where collectors and people in general, I'm not going to just say this is just from a collector's perspective. People in general have this thought in their head that if they are giving you money for something, that just gives them a blanket carte blanche to just treat you like shit, talk to you however they want to talk to you. And because I paid you money, you need to listen to me. I'm the one that's paying your salary, so you do what I tell you to do. And there's also this thing out there where people always try to say the customer's always right. And I'm here to tell you that the customer is not always right. From somebody who's worked in restaurants as a busboy, I've done every job type known to man up to the point where I am now as a established adult. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that customers are not always fucking right. Okay, like there are people who have shitty lives themselves, and they take pleasure in going out and treating people like shit to make themselves feel better. Like I've seen people that go into a Starbucks and yell at the person because they didn't get the right caramel latte swirl or whatever the hell that is, and they'll throw the coffee in the person's face or whatever the case may be. And again, I'm like, just because you pay for something doesn't mean you get to treat people like shit and talk to people however you want. Is the whole point I'm trying to make, okay? So the way that these people were talking to the people from Ramen Toys was just deplorable, okay? And at the end of the day, these is a small company ran by tiny people, and they don't deserve that kind of blowback for a product that you paid for, okay? Now, let's get back to the 80s Commander situation, all right? So, as you can see here, I'll give you some more pictures you can see here now. The face sculpts look a lot better. You know, the helmets themselves are more rounded. They look exactly how they looked in the show. The colors are not, they're more vibrant like they were in the 80s show for all the figures. And again, the head sculpts are different. The color palettes, these things look amazing, right? So here's where I will, and so this is what Ramen Toy did. They said that they're going to come out with a 3-pack. So it's going to be, they're not going to be sold separately like the other ones. These are going to be a 3-pack 80s version, and they're going to be re-releasing these for people who did not have an opportunity to get the first one, like myself. Now, what the consumers are upset about, they were like, how dare you re-release these, give us better head sculpts, and then not tell us that, and then not tell us that you're going to do that. We would have never bought the other one if we knew this one was going to be coming out. And at first I was like, yeah, that's a good point. You know, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a consumer to say, well, you know, what they're saying is kind of valid, and you know that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I get that makes sense. And then I was like, what, as a business perspective, I was like, what would I do if I was in that situation? So what Ramen Toy decided to do was they were like, we understand that people were not happy with the head sculpts from the first original release. So what we're going to do is when this new release comes out for the people who buying this version, anyone who backed the first set of the commanders will get the free head sculpts of the newer versions. And in my head, I was like, oh, that's a good compensation. Again, everybody was already complaining about it. They took that feedback and improved on the figure for the newest release and fixed the issues that people have with the other one. And they're not saying that, oh, you're screwed out of this altogether. We're going to give you the heads for free. So I'm like, okay, problem solved. They saw the issue. They're giving the other people the stuff for free. Good. Apparently that was not enough for the first backers. That's not enough. You need to give us the other ones for. Some people were saying that they want the new commanders for free, and some people were saying that, oh, I want a big discount. And in my head, I'm like, why are you entitled to a discount or the entire thing for free? It doesn't make any sense. Why do you think you deserve that? It like it's baffling to me when I say that. I'm thinking of it from a business perspective. What they're doing actually makes sense, and I'm explaining to you why. What they did was they took the weathered pattern Centurion Warriors first, and they put those out there as feelers to see who would be interested in this line. And it did exactly what they wanted it to do. The reviews started going out all over YouTube. The pictures started circulating over Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. People who did not know about this thing, including myself, then went to Ramen Toys and was like, yo, I missed out on this. Yo, can I get this? I want this. As a company, it succeeded in doing what it was supposed to do. It got people interested in the line. So then what they decided to do is release the 80s version as accurate as possible now that they have the name recognition from the people who backed it first. It's simple business math. Now that there are more people interested in this line that didn't even know about it 3 months ago, now they stand to make the best money. Now, at first, people were like saying, and again, and for a brief moment, I agree. People were saying that it's not that they are re-releasing it that's the issue, it's the timing. Like the other one just came out in December, and here we are January, less than a month later, and you're getting ready to re-release later on this year another version. Like you didn't even give it a chance to breathe. Like maybe you should have done a different, you should have brought out a villain or an accessory pack or something before you decided to do this one. And at first I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that's probably kind of true. You know, they probably could have, maybe it was a bad move for them to do it so fast. But then I thought about it, I was like, you have to jump on these things while the iron is hot. The product is red hot right now. People want it now. And again, you already have the mold. The mold is there. So all you have to do is do the redeco of the paint, change the sculpt of the helmets, and again, you give them better head sculpt. And again, the most of the work is done. You're not recreating new molds. It makes perfect sense to do a reissue of paint. Every company does it. Hasbro does it. Mattel does it with He-Man. Like every toy company does reissues, and they just slightly change things. But people don't get mad at the bigger companies like Hasbro, but they want to get mad at the smaller company for doing it. What they did makes perfect sense. People like me, people like other people who didn't get an opportunity to get the weathered version, now have the opportunity to get this version. And again, they're not hurting you. You still have your separate single packed set of the Commandos. They are in the weathered conditions. You can still have your rarity of those products. Nothing with that would ever change. As a matter of fact, the newer version is actually being sold as a 3-pack. So you're not even getting the same. They're not even, the people who are buying this now, they're not even getting the separate ones that you guys have. So if you guys want to resell it on eBay, if you want to keep it in box, you still have that figure. Nothing has changed. And on top of that, Ramen Toys is giving you the head sculpts from the newer ones. So not only do you have the older ones, you're going to get the new ones. I don't understand what the problem is. Like I honestly think that people just like being upset. They like having something to yell at. They like having something to take their anger out on. It's the same thing that I see on Facebook Marketplace, where people have this innate ability that no matter what this person is selling, people want to complain about it. Like I saw a guy selling a truck on Facebook Marketplace the other day, and I see a bunch of laughing emojis and things of that nature saying, how dare you charge $15,000 for this souped up truck? It's like, oh, you got cracked seats and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, if you don't like his truck, don't fucking buy it. Why do you feel like you have the need to go in there and bash something that you don't own that he's selling? If you don't like this man's product, then don't buy it. Why do you feel the need to sit there and criticize and critique something that you don't fucking own? If you don't like this man's truck, don't buy the truck. If you don't like these toys, don't buy them. But you saw the product. You saw the weathered look to the toys. You saw the head sculpt, and you made a decision to buy them. It is not the toy company's responsibility to give you their entire business plan up front. If I was a business and I'm sitting there trying to sell as many toys as possible, no, I'm not going to tell you up front that I'm going to release eventually the 80s colored inspired Centurions. Because I want you to buy the ones that are here now. Because again, think about it. If this was done in reverse, it would have been stupid. If they would have released this version of the 80s Centurions with the 80s color and then told y'all, we will never release this one again. And then they only sold like 5,000 sets, 5,000 of each of the sets, right? And then if anybody else decided to come back in and they wanted that 80s color inspired version, they could not get that. All they could ever get is the weathered pattern version. That wouldn't bode well. People were going to originally want the original colored version. So it made sense for them to do that one first to test the waters to see if this is even a product that would sell to the mass market. Like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like people that are consumers, they only look at it from their narrow point of view, from the point of view of, this is why I'm buying it. I don't care what this other person is. I'm giving you this money, therefore I only care about it from my perspective. You have to be able to look at things from all sides in order to make an informed decision and just curb your craziness. Because again, all these people that are sitting here yelling and screaming and attacking and threatening these people is just over a toy. It's ridiculous. No, they did not screw you over. They gave you exactly what you asked for. They showed you pictures. They gave you a product, and you liked the product until you saw something else that you also wanted, and now you want that other product for free. And that's what it boils down to. So, I mean, like I said, it's very unfortunate that this ended up happening. And I honestly feel bad for Ramen Toys, because what ended up happening is that I guess one of the owners of Ramen Toys came out and kind of had a fit. I'm trying to see if they even still have it up. Maybe he actually deleted the post, because as of okay, no, it is. So on his Facebook page, just a couple hours ago, I guess it got to him that all these people were like, attacking him and threatening him. He was like, I lied and I cheated investors, that the Commanders are a one-time run that will never be released again, but now just reissued them. Sincerely apologies. No, Noel Lee. So people took that as people clearly don't understand sarcasm. So that's one thing. But what ended up happening is that in the comment section, again, he still had a lot of supporters, but then he had a lot of people who were saying, "Oh, this is bad. You should hire a PR company." And to that, I might actually agree a little bit, because again, I definitely think that, when dealing with these kind of people head on all the time, it will get to anybody. I don't care who you are. You can say you're tough as nails when you have people basically calling you a liar, calling you a thief, a cheater, all this kind of things back to back to back. It will get to anybody, straight up and down. So him lashing out the way that he did made sense to me. I get that. But in the future, he definitely probably needs to get a PR team, or just ignore the haters. Because again, at the end of the day, he didn't lie. He didn't lie. He didn't cheat. You got your first run of your toy, and that version of the Centurions will never exist again. The weathered pattern is, well, again, as far as we know, that weathered pattern version of the Centurions will not exist anymore. The 80s inspired version is what we have now. And that will be available to the mass market of people, where they can maximize the amount of money they can make so that they can continue to make products later on. Like, I don't understand what you guys want. Like, if the line doesn't do well, you're not going to get your Centurions. That's just how it is. Like, I could see if they shipped the product and it was broken, the arms were broken, the legs were broken, the hip joints were broken, if the holes weren't fitting the figures, like that to me are QC issues, are not no bueno. Like, if you got QC issues, you need to fix those QC issues. You need to refund me, or you need to give me another version of that product. But to sit there and say that you were cheated is just a bold-faced lie. And you're just in your feelings, and you're upset that you didn't get the 80s version that you wanted for free. That's kind of how I look at it right now. Again, I just really hope that as a community we can just start doing a better job of not overreacting over every little detail, and just enjoy the hobby more. Like, again, if you don't want the product, don't buy it. But if you make an informed decision to buy something, it is not the company's job to give you their entire business plan. So yes, whenever I buy something from Hasbro, I'll give you a prime example before I get out of here. Lady J, was it Lady J or Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified? They released the first version of Scarlet, and everybody hated it. Everybody hated it. They hated the way that she looked like a Fortnite character. She looked like a cartoon. She looked way too young, like a 15-year-old. Everybody hated it. But people still went out and bought it. I went out and bought it, and I switched the head out with a Black Widow because I really wanted the Scarlet, so I got it. Then, a couple months later, they re-released her with a better sculpt, with new deco, with a different head sculpt that looked more mature, less cartoony. I didn't grab my pitchfork and start screaming, "How dare you re-release this figure? You should have gave me the extra head sculpt for free. I'm not going to do..." No. I went out and I bought the second one. And I binned the other one, or I used it for fodder, or whatever the case. No, as a matter of fact, I think I still have it with the Black Widow head sculpt on it. It's fine. I made an informed decision when it came out, even though I saw the head sculpt and I knew what it was, and I didn't like it, and I still bought it. That was my decision. And then when they re-released her with a updated head sculpt, I bought it. I didn't send an email to Hasbro and tell them, "How dare you re-release this, and you knew that the head sculpt was bad, and da-da-da-da-da. You need to send me that head sculpt for free, and I want the whole figure for free, da-da-da-da-da." They took the feedback from the first release, they made changes, and they re-released it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't give them the feedback, and then when they make the corrections, expect them to give it to you for free. That's not how business works. The business would go out of business. All right, rant over. Let me know what you guys think. I know this was a long one, but I had to kind of get everything out, and I'm pretty sure I forgot some topics that I wanted to discuss about this as well. But let me know. Let's get the conversation started in the comment section below. This is Shut Up the King. Peace.